So it's just your old buddy Maddie. So you said you had a lot of emotions to process because of the ups and downs of the race, because you did well. Like what are these emotions you're discussing?
I would say both. I mean, I think that anybody that does any sort of race kind of knows that whether it's one that you perform well, perform bad, have a lot of highs, have a lot of lows, there's sort of a lot that you go through during a race in your head. And so you can't always stop and do that on course. You sort of have to move through it. But then usually later that day or the next day, at least for me, it's kind of working through that, assessing the highs, assessing the lows, and kind of, celebrating or whatever I need to do to kind of learn from it and then move on to the next one, I guess.
So for Savage, I know you recently finished as high as fourth. Is this your first podium? Legit podium?
No, I've gotten third several times at Savage, but this was my best finish at a Savage, and I've been doing Savage for several years, so this was definitely my best finish there.
So you get to that last rig over water, and were they telling you like, hey, you could be in second now? Like how did it all go?
No, it's funny because my legs actually felt kind of bad that day. I did a 24-hour race a couple of weekends ago, and so still sort of cycling out of that. So I felt kind of fatigued, and when I got to the rig, I think I was in fifth, sixth, or seventh. I really don't know, um, and I don't even think they saw me and realized because I was right behind Tiffany, and so I watched her go through, and everybody I think was just like, wow, because there have been a lot of girls there, and so I kind of just came up, and I don't even know if they knew I was on it. I just worried about getting through it on the first try, and then I got through. So
Didn't Tiffany fail at once, or did she make it first try?
no, she made it. She had actually gotten lost on course, and that's why she hit the rig in the place that she did. She should have arrived there sooner, but she had gotten a little turned around and had to reroute back. And I think she probably ended up running a little extra. And then, but she did make it through on the first try.
It was very exciting at home to watch. People were like going nuts and cheering people on. Um, and lots of people who prefer harder obstacles were thrilled. We're like, great. We don't just want this to be a running race. It's nice to put some skill in there. It's what people really like about OCRWC, for example. I did have a slight hang up with the grazing the water versus falling in rule. I feel like water doesn't help you if you touch it. It's not like the ground. So I thought that was a bit, do you think they should change it, or you think they should leave it as it is?
No, I mean, I actually didn't see any problem with it for a couple of reasons. First of all, the race staff was extremely clear about the rule at the race start and at the obstacles. So it was very equally administered. There was no confusion for any pro athlete. So I thought that was fine. And then I also think that it was part of the obstacle because when you do a low rig, for example, at OCRWC or whatever races have that, part of mastering the obstacle is maintaining control. And that hose or rope or whatever it was at the end of that rig was essentially a low piece. And the idea is that if you're an athlete that's accomplishing it, you maintain control across the full piece. And then also, I kind of think about the way that Spartan has had issues with administering burpee form. And so when you look at something like the water, I actually think it's easier to say you can't touch the water as opposed to, you can graze it. Well, what does graze mean? Then you're now having obstacle, marshals having to watch people touching the water and what counts and what doesn't. So I thought that it was fair. I thought it was clearly communicated. And I just think it was part of doing the obstacle.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
You're kind of starting to lean me towards that because I'm more of the I think a fall is a fall and otherwise it isn't.
Mhm.
But I guess I hadn't quite heard it put that way about sort of control and what that means in terms of elite athletes. So you're leaning me a little bit. So you finished second, and you said if you needed yesterday's workout to process it, what were the feelings yesterday or Saturday? Did you cry on the ride home? Did you celebrate? Did you stop and eat a burger?
The truth is kind of the backstory of I didn't register until Friday morning because I was a little bit afraid of it. But something in me was like, Rachel, you're afraid of it. You need to get your butt back out there because it's kind of hard to think about driving up to Charlotte by yourself and paying to do a race and then possibly DNFing and then having to drive home and ending 2020 that way. And so, I had to really work on my mental game going into that. And, again, I was kind of out there just doing my own thing, going kind of slow. And I've always wanted to place better in Savage Race. I get fourth place a heck of a lot at Savage Race. And so I had a bone to pick with myself. And so, I've been racing for many years now and had to process the emotional impact of stepping up that mental threshold for me of breaking that second to third place barrier. But, I did cry a little bit when I crossed the finish line, I think, just because of, years of hard work and finally it's your day, and then next step is getting an axe, I think.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's gotta be the next, I mean, like that's gotta be the next goal, right? I'm getting kind of emotional. I'm an emotional person, but because I've seen you, right? Because I
feel a lot, Matt. I feel.
Well, and I've watched you, right? And I think this does go to show, I feel like even when they have controversy, Savage just handles everything better. You know what I mean? I feel like they just overall, like even when it was going down, it's like you just you have a lot of trust in the bank with Savage as opposed to a Spartan, which sadly, and yes, I know they put on 4 more races, but we have such trust in the bank with those guys because they listen to the customer. They, even when there have had stuff happen, they've just handled it, right? Because they have had stuff where, like Woodsy got lost a couple of times actually, and Woodsy hated them, but they stuck to their guns and didn't change. And then remember Yuri got out of the water early once, and they were very clear about the rule. Anyway, they just handle everything really well. I just really like. What can we can't say enough about how much we like Savage Race.
Yeah, and I do have to shout out to them because when all was said and done, and I was finally headed back out to my car to leave, it was mushy out in the field, and my car got stuck. And so I went to the closest, I don't even know if it's a golf cart, but Savage people I could see to ask for help. And Sam was there, and race day, he has so much to do. I mean, can you imagine everything he has to deal with? And he stopped what he was doing and he got out and helped me push my car.
Right.
And I thought that was really cool because again, he's got a million things to do on this stressful day, and he stopped what he was doing to, push the Honda with me. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And he doesn't do that because you're going to say that. He does that because that's his natural inkling. Because I think that's the thing about those guys. They really are just good guys that put on a race that we all happen to really
they
like.
do. And I think that a lot of us were really excited to see them make it through the pandemic, and they've done a fantastic job with making safe events too. But I do love Spartan. And I think that part of it is just Spartan's so big, right? They can't have their A man at every event. And I think that's part of, when you get, that's any company deals with that, right? You get so big that you have to start hiring people and you just lose control over quality. And I'm not saying anything bad about them because I love Spartan. But, I do think that Savage really sets a bar with their customer service and listening to athletes.
I concur. Well, let's talk about this 24-hour event, which a couple people told me about. Okay. Because it's, as far as I know, the only 24-hour live event happening in the pandemic.
Yeah, I think there was actually a small one in Arkansas as well. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I was thrilled to be able to do something for 24 hours this year because I had originally hoped to do the Ultra Championship in Killington, and then I couldn't do that. So it was really nice to be able to have an event to do.
So tell people where it was and what it was about.
Sure. It was at a great obstacle venue. It's one of the homegrown ones in the South. It's called the Casa Garcia. You can look them up on Facebook, Casa Garcia OCR, and it's out in Fayetteville, Tennessee. So sort of in the country, about 4 hours or so from Atlanta. But 7 or 8 acres of land. They have a 1.25 mile obstacle loop that's got 20 or 30 obstacles on it. And they have good obstacles. They have a pegboard. They have 5 or 6 different rigs. They had rope climbs. I mean, stairway to heaven. They had all kinds of stuff.
Is it kind of like OCR King Compound, but if OCR King Compound had their obstacles out in the woods kind of a thing?
Yeah, it was more spread out like that. So the obstacles were out dispersed a little bit more on the loop.
And like, how cold was it?
It wasn't too cold, actually. That was fantastic. No wetsuit or anything. They didn't have any water obstacles. I think it dipped down to maybe the high 40s that night. So it was very comfortable running weather. It did. I think it rained. It rained in the morning after the sun came up a little bit, but it wasn't terribly cold.
And did you win that event?
I did. It was a small group, but I did. I took home first place overall.
So you beat all the dudes too?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so humble, Rachel?
Because I just show up and do what I love to do. And sometimes it's good enough to beat everybody. And sometimes it's not, you know?
I believe that when you say that, though. I think that's kind of how you approach it. Like, I remember talking to you after Worlds. Was it last year or the year before? Did you do Worlds both years it was here?
I did it that really, really cold year. And then I also did it last year.
So how did you do in 18?
In 18, that was my first year. And I think I got 8th. And then last year I got 5th.
I mean, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I guess it is. I mean, I really look at it like, did I improve my mileage year over year? Did I get better?
Right.
That's kind of how I'm going. And, sure, maybe if I keep going, I can, get a top 3 spot one day. I don't know, but it's really, did I do it and did I improve?
How many miles did you get last year?
Okay, so my first year I got 60. Last year I got 70. And then at my 24-hour event this year, I got 80.
Right. Well, Worlds, you can't exactly compare
No.
year to year, but that first year was brutal. 60 was like not a normal 60 year because it was so horrible.
I was warm. I was warm. I mean, everybody, I had a lot of neoprene on, and it was a great race for me because I'm not the fastest runner. But if it gets gritty and people start to get cold and drop out for other reasons, that's when I start to show up. So if the weather's good and it's warm, that's why, I don't always do as well at Savages and races like that. If it's the weather's good and it's a fast course, that's when I don't podium. But if it gets cold, if they put something that really breaks people down mentally, I think that's when I usually do a little better.
So why don't you just do like all the Spartan ultras maybe?
Well, that's my favorite event. If you had to ask me, pick one thing in OCR, it is a Spartan ultra, and I do 2 or 3 a year. And I'm going to try to do Montana.
And have you podiumed at those?
Almost all of them. Yeah. Yeah.
The Worlds, you said you weren't cold. Can I ask, what were you wearing? Like a 5'3"? Like, what were you wearing?
I was wearing, and it was my first time ever wearing a wetsuit or anything. I was wearing, 2XU pants, a long sleeve Under Armour shirt. I had a 2.5 vest only, so just a neoprene vest,
right,
under my I think it's a 3.5 or 3.2. It's a Hyperflex. It was like the $90 Hyperflex one that I bought.
Right.
But I think that vest, again, putting an extra 2.5 just on my core under
but
the
leave your arms free to move around.
Yeah, but you're adding more here. And then I had, neoprene gloves and that whole like scuba looking head cover and a windbreaker. I mean, when you look at pictures of me that first year, I look like a, bundled up piece of mud, but I mean, I was just kept waddling along,
And then the second year, just same, but just less layers because it wasn't as cold.
Yeah, it was a little warmer. It was warmer. Yeah. But I mean, I just put my head down and just keep walking. I mean, this past year, what was interesting was I try not to look at the leaderboard. They have the big screen because I'm like,
just keep going.
Yeah, just worry about me because, in those first couple of hours, I think Amelia Boone passed me like 3 times or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, Rachel, and it's really easy to go down a downward spiral, but you just have to say, stop it. How you talk to yourself matters. And then right around the morning, I guess everybody started dropping, and I didn't even hit the top 10 until like 18 hours in. And then my sister was there and she was like, hey, you got to keep going. She's like, if you keep moving, you can move spots. Everybody else is walking and you're still running. And so my legs hurt, but I kind of just kept jogging in the morning.
Yeah, I know we have this phrase. I'm glad this came up. I can talk about my own experience, and we can talk about it. So, because I've done a lot of slow jogging in the last 8 years, and the last few like months, I've decided to like push myself more. And I wanted to do really fast at my half marathon, and I did a 19 miler yesterday, which I was going to talk to you about. So, we have this whole thing about run your own race, don't worry about other people, but other people can be a
Yeah.
big motivator, right? Like
Mhm.
early
Oh
on,
yeah.
I think it makes sense. Like ignore that person, right? But I
Mhm.
got to mile, um, whatever it was. So this was a like 18-ish mile race. I got to about mile 16 and it sort of settled into, I'm not going to pass anybody else. I'm clearly just going to be where I'm at, like, even though I'm going really hard. And then at one point, I stopped to take a picture of myself because it was a nice little view. And I saw this one coming up behind me who I had passed hours ago. And I was like, fuck no. You know what I mean? And then I
Yeah.
decided I had a lot left in me, like a lot.
Mhm.
And it really started to like hurt. But it's like, you can hurt for 2 miles, Matt. Like,
Mhm.
let's do this. And then I saw another guy that had passed me hours ago. And I was like, how you doing? He's like, oh man, both my legs are cramping, blah, blah, blah. And my mind went, wait a minute, you're tired, but your legs aren't like, let's go. You know what I mean? And so that stuff really can help. So what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, when you go up to a competition, I mean, and everybody does it differently. There are some people that are just born with that, stand at the start line and look around, and they're just hungry to eat everybody else there. And I'm not that way. I think, you know, my primary race is against myself, but then my secondary race is against the other women there, and it really depends on the duration because, one thing, and I know you do a lot of events when you're racing back to back weekends. I mean, you can't win them all usually, and sometimes it's not your day or whatever. But as a strategy, I generally am going out slower. I usually pick up pace in my back half of my racing because I just try to assess it. I try to see what's going on. Feel it out. But I do get competitive, especially with not wanting to get past. Right.
Right.
Sometimes when you're finishing in the top five, sometimes it is hard to get that one or two people, but it's also about like holding your line and kind of setting that standard. And I don't know about you, but sometimes my goal changes as the race goes on. Sometimes you're starting and you're like, let me just see how the legs feel today. And then as you get out there and see how you're doing against the competition, you reevaluate your goal. And kind of work with it. You have to be flexible, or you're going to get your heart broken racing as much as I do. You
for
can't expect
for
one.
sure. And the other thing is about I was going to say, because you earlier when the call started before I hit record, you asked me how the race went. That was another thing. There was another guy so for me, I don't know if you're the same way, but if I can see you now, I have to pass you. Like that's just how the last couple miles goes, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of, when you pass someone, you kind of hope you don't see anybody else, but then you do see somebody else and you're like, oh fuck, right?
Yeah, I've
So
got to turn it up another notch. Yeah.
so here's this guy, and again, a guy that had passed me a few miles ago, and it was like, well, now I'm getting him. You know what I mean? And it's like, had I not turned it on the first time because that
Mhm.
girl saw me, I would have just finished how I finished and kind of would have been none the wiser. But I'm so happy that my last 2 miles were like the fastest miles I ran that day.
Yeah, I mean, it's not over till it's over. And that's something I have to tell myself as an athlete that is not running 6.5 minute miles at the beginning like some of my peers are. I have to remind myself that. When I was at Savage and I'm wavering between somewhere in sixth and eighth place or whatever in those first handful of miles, it can be easy to get comfortable and give up and say, you know what, Rachel, you're not even close to the podium, just relax. But you just kind of say, don't worry about her. Remember you're good at obstacles, remember your strengths. It's not over till it's over, because that's the kind of the cool thing about OCR is that some races are set up where it doesn't matter how fast you can run. It matters which obstacles you can do. And it plays to strengths. They're both important in OCR. I mean, running, it's a race, but the obstacles are definitely an important part. So it's just not over till it's over. So don't give up on yourself, don't get comfortable, and be willing to readjust your expectations as you go with it.
And what about for this year? Did you do with all the OCRs coasting? Did you do more trail races? Did you do some more ultras? What else did you get done this year?
Everybody's complained about this year, and it's actually been an okay year for me. I just took it as an opportunity to train more, because I wasn't racing all of the time. We were lucky in Atlanta, as you know. One of my first races was actually your summer one, the summer on the ATL. And I just decided, you know what, you can't do OCR, you can do trail races. So yeah, I did. I actually got a 50K PR this year, and then I did the Dirty Spokes, some of his trail racing. I've also focused this year on building more strength. I had done High Rocks earlier. I did DECA Strong. I'm planning to do DECA Fit next year. So I took it as an opportunity to build strength. So I've been working on kind of more CrossFit type of stuff.
So we'll give Dirty Spokes a shout out. They're a local trail series.
Tim's awesome.
Yeah. So Tim, they do bike, they do run, they do biathlon, or not biathlon. What do you call those? Duathlons. Have you placed at those? How have those gone for you?
Yeah. Usually now there are some quick runners that show up, but I'm usually top 10. I mean, whenever I go, I think I got second or third at the last one I did. It really just depends on the course, but I love his events. They have got a good like 8-mile distance, which, is a good running race to run because it keeps you in shape. But yeah, he does a great job.
Right. There's one that's basically like 4K straight up and 4K straight down. I did that one once, I think. I forgot what that one's called.
I've done stuff at Red Top. I did a pretty fast 10K of his a few weeks ago, but this year again with OCR, I was lucky enough to do, just a handful. I did 2 Savages in the 24-hour race, but I just kept it sharp by trying to run more and do trail races.
What about, did you do, I always get these confused, but like the Brasstown Ball, the Quest for the Crest, all those like vertical ultras, whatever that go on down here?
I do like those, but I haven't made it to those specific races.
Right. February was supposed to be Jacksonville Spartan. Now people think the new president is going to attempt to shut the country down. I can tell you that Florida listens to nobody. So I plan on being there. How about you?
I'm hoping to be there. I am. I have a season pass, so I'm going to really work on doing what I can next year with Spartan. It's just, I haven't put my race calendar down on paper yet, but I am looking at February, March, because I need to start making decisions there. But yeah, I do want to. My goal is to try to get down to, I've not ever raced in Jacksonville, actually.
It's a pretty flat one. So, yeah. But then again, there is like, it's not just flat. There's water, it's mucky. But just to be out there again, I know I'm going to be excited just to be around Spartan on the Spartan obstacles. You said you did do, they did bring one of the local DECAs, like the actual event, which still hasn't happened, is DECA Fit, but they've been doing these other things, the DECA Mile and the DECA Heavy. So which one did you do? I'm trying to get clarity.
Did Strong. They were actually
DECA Strong.
Yeah. Yancey and Jared were passing through Atlanta, and they were testing a gym here to possibly put on an event. And so they needed some people at the gym to work through it so that they could see that the space would work and all of that. So I had the privilege to get to go there when they were passing through, and I got to do the DECA Strong, which is just the gym, so it doesn't have the running in it. And I loved it.
So they're actually scheduled to be here. There's a DECA regular,
the fit, which has it's the 5K of running, I think,
right. So that's supposed to be here. However, is the same weekend as, drum roll please, wait for it, Battle Frog is coming back.
Yeah.
So to Florida. So I'm going to be at that one too. Will you do Battle Frog when it comes back? If it comes back?
Now I would love to do Battle Frog when it comes back next year, but I would choose the DECA Fit event over.
Really? Mm-hmm. What about BFX, bro? That would be your jam.
Oh, I never got to do a BFX actually. And I'm going to watch their calendar because I may not make it to that first one. Cause that's April 24th, right?
Right.
The problem is I'm going to Montana the next weekend to run the Spartan Ultra. And so just for my life, it would be easier for me to even stay in town in Atlanta the weekend before, but I'm just dying to do DECA Fit. So,
okay.
Yeah, I really want to do it.
Yeah, I'm excited about them coming back. I can't believe you never did. Cause I know that the whole OCR King compound gang did that back in the day with Justin and Chrissy and Cody and everybody.
I was going to, and then they went out of business. I was planning on doing one in the, November, I think, when they were already on the calendar to come to Atlanta. And then as we all know what happened, they just kind of one day said, we're sorry, everybody. So, I think that I'd be really excited to do that. So I'm definitely going to watch. I'm hoping they come to Atlanta, but I'll have to watch what they do.
How do you adjust your training for ultra, obstacle, and then you really want to get strong for something short like DECA? How do you, or do you just train how you train?
I just train how I train. I've actually never had a coach before. I just kind of do my own thing. And sometimes I call myself the jack of all trades, master of none, because I can pretty much go to any distance race, whether it be a flat, Spartan sprint or a Killington Spartan Ultra or a DECA, and I can show up. But I just don't want to have to give any of it up to focus on one thing. So it's really just, I love working out too. So just doing it during the week and trying to make a calendar where I can do as much as possible, but then also be mindful about doing yoga each week and swimming and recovering. But I don't really adjust it. I just kind of see events that I think look fun. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then, I was talking to somebody because I had someone ask me about the mileage I run. How do you train for 80 miles? And it's pretty funny because, Matt, I'm now running the most I've ever run, and that's 100 miles a month. And that's not a lot compared to
right
my counterparts, but you just train enough. And then at least on an ultra, you train enough. And then the last half, you just kind of use this and work through the pain. But no, I don't really adjust my training. I just make a calendar, do as many events as I can, and then train in between.
If both Killington 24-hour and Worlds 24-hour happen next year, will you do both? Because one will be Nevada, one will be Vermont, I guess.
I would like to. I think that because they're now under single ownership, the dates will probably be more separated to make it viable, right? Because and also if they do I really hope they do Killington, but yeah, I would love to do both. If I absolutely had to pick one, I would pick the Killington Spartan Ultra, but my goal will be to do my very best to do both because I have not done the Vegas venue for toughest.
Right. Well, it's a new Vegas venue. It's Laughlin,
okay.
but
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would not want to do Killington for 24 hours.
Oh, I loved it. That course was great. I loved that ultra. It was definitely, I think I've done 5 or 6 of the ultra venues. And that was the hardest one. I loved it though. It was really cool.
I heard New Jersey was also hard though.
Yeah, actually Aspen was that 18 was pretty hard. They're all hard in their own way. Because I've done Tahoe, I've done Aspen, I've done Breckenridge, I did New Jersey, I did Killington. I haven't done the Texas and Ohio because I prefer the mountains. But I think Killington was the hardest one that I have done.
Did you do Tahoe 2019?
Let me think. No, I think I did. I can't remember.
Did you do well?
I did 18. I did the ultra in 18.
And how did you do?
It wasn't the snow year.
And how did you do though?
I ended up actually staying with a friend who was really sick on course. So yeah, I ended up getting 10th in their ultra, but that was my worst placement actually in an ultra. But again, it was, it was fine. Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover? I should look up your athletes results in these Spartan races because that would remind me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever really, I think 10th is the worst I've ever finished in that Spartan Ultra. But yeah, I think I show up and the other girls are like, okay, she's here. This may be her day where she'll beat me. So I think that's a good thing. And really, I just focus on improving. And I know we've been friends for 5 years. I mean, I started in 2015 and I like to think that I'm just getting, a little better every year. And I just want to keep working on that trajectory.
What about, I'm pulling up a website here.
I don't know what that means.
I was looking for links. It looks like Barbarian. Are they still around? Is Barbarian still around?
Yeah, they are. They didn't get to do their event this year. But yeah, I won that one I'm so confused on the year. In 2019, I won that one. And that one felt good because that was one of those races I kept showing up to and I kept getting second and third. So, I finally got that. They get this really cool Conan the Barbarian looking sword.
Who were you losing to at those events?
I think Rachel Hamrick won one year. Some of the local girls that really know the trails. And I also learned, I can't give away my secret, but there's like a make or break point at the beginning where it really bottlenecks. So I just had to assess what I was doing wrong and get out faster at the beginning, basically, and then just run. Because it was one of those races that I'm physically capable of winning, but I just hadn't strategized correctly, I guess. And so, but I got it.
Okay, yeah. So I'm looking at. Looks like there's none of your 2020s are on Athlinks. I don't know how much you keep up with that or not.
Yeah, because I didn't. In 2020, I've done mostly the ultra sign up and stuff and independent because it's mostly been trail. I did High Rocks in February, in Dallas, so that was really cool.
Wait a minute, is this right? This says you finished second at Savage in 2019.
I don't think so. I would remember that.
I think it says one of two in your division, 2 of 8 in your gender, 14th overall. Oh, this says pro non-compete sets. Oh, this is Sunday.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, that's the Blitz. Is that the Blitz?
That must be the Blitz. Yeah.
That was that was actually, and kind of circling all of the way, taking this full circle. When I told you that I was on the fence about going to Savage this past weekend, I had a Blitz in 2019 where I failed Wheel World towards the beginning and I fell in the cold water and I got really cold and it was my first, band give up and I had to go through that. Every pro athlete has to go through that,
right.
To run a Savage. And so that was kind of what was holding me back because with looking at the weather and knowing that there was a lot of grip stuff over water, I was afraid of driving up to Charlotte and giving up my band. So that's my, everyone has them. That one I learned a lot, but it was also, I'm glad it happened because I realized that the world goes on when you lose your band and nobody cares. I mean,
that is very much true. The world does move on.
It moves on. Life goes on. You just have to be glad you got to do it.
All right, cool. Well, listen, I'm glad we got to hop on. I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
I was super stoked to see your result yesterday.
Yeah, well, it meant a lot to me. I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, I was watching Facebook Live and I was just so excited to see you come through and do that. So I just, and again, I thought it was kind of cool because I don't even think they realized I was on the rig. And then I just kind of came into the frame on that rope and did it. And it was really special for me. Great way to end this year and some great momentum to start next year with. So.